It has been months since the disastrous failure known as Disney's Snow White, a movie that really never had a chance, that for years there was a bunch of bad PR. Not only that, but I mean, the movie, even if there wasn't bad PR, even if everything went swimmingly, even if Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler never had any drama, there was never any bad stuff that came out, no big political statements, even if it had been a perfect PR campaign, the movie still would have done poorly because it was a massive piece of shit.
Yes.
It just was. People did not like the movie. But there's no doubt that it being turned into a culture war minefield, a political minefield effectively by Rachel Zegler, harmed the movie. Well, now Gal Gadot is finally speaking out. And to be honest, I think this is the closest we're ever going to hear from her putting any of the blame whatsoever on this thing becoming a mess on Rachel Zegler. And she did it in about the most professional way, I suppose you could. Rachel Zegler's Snow White bomb blamed on politics, says Gal Gadot. Now, we're going to have to listen to this thing and we'll read it because it's and not in a language that I speak, that I'm very familiar with. But Gal Gadot says that Hollywood pressure to denounce Israel helped tank Disney's woke Snow White. Israel is it does not matter what you say. It is a hot button topic on either side. Whatever you say, you're going to get people upset. But this interview is interesting because she's asked about Snow White bombing effectively. That's what starts this conversation. How was your experience? And here's how she starts it out.
כעסת? אני חייבת להגיד לך, קודם כל, ממש נהניתי לצלם את הסרט הזה. ממש. נהניתי...
זה לא היה עם רייצ'ל זליגר.
So, were you angry when the film bombed? She says, well, let me start off by saying that I had a great time with this film. I loved it. We had fun. It was great. And then the interviewer, Israeli interviewer, obviously, is on Israeli TV or some shit, but is like, well, especially when you didn't have to film with Rachel Zegler, right? As kind of a joke. And Gal Gadot says, no, like, I had a great time with Rachel Zegler. Everything was going great when we were on set. We had a lot of fun doing this thing.
נהניתי אפילו לעבוד עם רייצ'ל זגלר. וצחקנו ודיברנו, והיה כיף. הייתי בטוחה שהסרט הזה הולך להצליח בענק.
I was sure this movie was going to be a huge hit. Well, probably shouldn't have been. It was an awful movie, regardless of anything that happened in the PR tour.
Maybe in like when they first talked to her about it, that they're going to redo a Snow White, I guess they sounded like that could have been something bigger than what it was. You know, remaking some of the classics. They didn't all bomb necessarily, you know, but...
ואז קרה השבעה באוקטובר. ומה שקורה, וזה קורה מאוד 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 בכל מיני תעשיות, וגם בהוליווד, מופעל המון לחץ על סלבריטאים, על שחקנים, על יוצרים, להעלות דברים נגד ישראל.
Now she says, then, you know, we had fun, we were making this, everybody was having a good time, all this stuff. And then October happens, the attacks happen, and all of a sudden it's this big thing where some people in industries are feeling pressure to speak out against Israel. This is what Gal Gadot is saying. I do not think that people being pressured to speak out against Israel, like in general, is like the reason that this movie failed. I don't think Gal Gadot being Israeli is the reason this movie failed. I think what she's saying, in not so many words, is that Rachel Zegler is one of the people that felt pressure to do that or felt emboldened to do that. Because let's remember, yes, Gal Gadot is Israeli. You can think whatever you want of Gal Gadot. You can think she's a terrible actress. A lot of people feel that way, blah, blah, blah. She didn't attach that to the marketing of Snow White, right? She didn't tweet out trailers and then say, and by the way, we're going to wipe Palestine off the fucking map, you know, long live Israel. Rachel Zegler did those things.
Yeah.
She did it in conjunction with the promotion of the movie. She started attaching political statements to it. Like when she shared the trailers, all of that shit. All while having an Israeli co-star that's obviously wrapped up in all this stuff as well. I think that is what she is saying right here. She says, I can talk to people, I can explain, what context and what my point of view is on all of this stuff. But in the end, people make their own decisions. And I was disappointed the movie was affected by it. And it didn't succeed at the box office. But that's how it goes. You win some, you lose some. I think that is going to be as close as we ever get to her assigning any blame for the performance of the movie on Rachel Zegler's antics.
Yeah, that's as classy as you could get without saying, why did Rachel post Free Palestine underneath the teaser trailer? And then when you look at like all the Instagram stuff, you had Rachel Zegler saying F Trump supporters. And she just went very political in everything that she posted. It looked like she cropped out some pictures of Gail like in some of her Instagram posts for the marketing of this. Rachel did, so it just drummed up tension, or maybe there was no tension, but maybe it was just it got people talking about that. But yeah, the movie, to be honest, man, her song and dance in that film was the worst one of the entire movie. It was awful.
It was bad. The whole movie was bad.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I say, like, if this would have been a perfect PR campaign, Rachel Zegler doesn't say retarded things right. 2 years before. Like, we don't get into that. It still wouldn't have been a good movie, and it still would have done poorly. Now,
agreed.
Could that still be like, maybe it makes like $500 million at the box office, disappointment, doesn't make its money back, still fails and all that stuff, as opposed to being one of the biggest bombs in the history of the company? Yeah. Yes, I do think that even with it would have failed without any of this shit. There's no doubt in my mind, or the minds of anyone that has two brain cells to rub together, that Rachel Zegler did irreparable harm to the movie for 2 years. You know what I mean?
But you know what? I believe it was you or people in the chat, they called it that eventually it will come out that they were going to blame some kind of politics or something like that as to why the movie failed. And here's kind of it. Maybe with Rachel Zegler's politics or her statements or whatever it was. So I bet a couple of years removed, it'll get even, it'll get better. Maybe Rachel Zegler say something next. Were you upset that the movie bombed? Well, look, we had an Israeli on there, right in the middle of a war. People don't want to support that.
For content wise, I hope Rachel Zegler gets really mad that Gal would dare say anything like that. And I hope she fucking responds. I would love that. I would love that.
What's your YouTube channel?
It would help me.
They would love it.